Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, ET Now's special initiative that celebrates the undying entrepreneurial spirit of micro, small and medium enterprises. On the show, we're taking your emails, your calls, as well as your social media queries. And I have two experts who are joining me in the studio tonight. I have Sushant Mitra, he's the founder and CEO at Lead Angels Network. I also have Dr. Anil Menon, he's the faculty at the SP Jain School of Management. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming down to our studios and answering all of the queries. All right, the first query is a call coming in from Janak Bhalaria. Go ahead, Janak.
We are a manufacturer of stainless steel items and we are an export house. My major problem is that several times we do not understand which are the departments that affect us, as well as the law which keeps on changing. So it is very difficult to keep several consultants for SME. So my request is, can we have one window where all our queries about the law is being addressed and we can get the advice?
So even as the government is talking about, Startup India and is promising that the ease of doing business is going to change, has it started sort of changing on the ground in the single window that he's asking about? How's that really going to play out?
So I think some of the states already have single window sort of for facilitating startups and manufacturing companies and so on. At the central level, it is harder to manage because there are so many different ministries who, a pharmaceutical company will have to go to Ministry of, Industries and Pharmaceuticals, whereas electronics will be, in a different ministry. So it's harder to do that in the at the central level. But what a lot of associations have done is that they have sort of created special interest groups within themselves, and that deals with the industry. So he may want to connect with his industry association to find out which are the ministries that he would be, his company would be directly interacting with, and how to contact, and so on and so forth.
I totally endorse what my esteemed colleague said. Industry associations, and one more suggestion is he should get himself registered under Udyog Aadhar. And he should regularly follow up what the MSME website is saying today, because that is getting regularly updated by the government. So the current changes he'll come to know, right? Sure. But industry association should be his prime focus, right? Absolutely.
Let's take in the next query. Devesh Patel is calling in with this one. Go ahead, Devesh.
My question is, we are facing the problem, the bigger problem from China. China is throwing very lower price compared to India. Very, very lower price, and I just wanted to know how to face them.
All right, Devesh, thanks for that. So this query hasn't come up so far on any of the call-in shows that we've done in terms of how you take on competition specifically from China. So we're talking about, of course, low cost in terms of pricing. What would you recommend?
Quality. So one thing he can possibly enforce is quality. Second, value-added services. So can he do since he is in automobile and automobile parts, can he do something beyond only exporting and competing on price? So many of my clients, and I should very proudly say many of my students, have actually taken on Chinese competitors by actually going back to the customer, right, educating them on the quality difference, how in the longer term you have what we call as the cost benefit analysis coming out. If you try to match China only on price, I think it's a battle that we are fighting, right, which is in their favor. But if you can expand the scope for the customer and go and talk about, I insist on this word, cost benefit analysis in the long run, I think Indian exporters are able to do well also.
All right, let's take in our next query. Vinit Kenjale has written to us on Facebook, and he says, what designs and materials can be used which will lower the cost for construction? So this is specifically related to the real estate space. And even as we're talking about the costs, competing with competitors from China, even homegrown, the real estate industry is looking at input costs which are high. So, cost of cement is going up, steel is going up, but how do they really work out the cost when it comes to the cost of construction, prefab maybe, for example?
I think there are a lot of new materials coming out, some of them from our universities, some of them from our research institutes, which definitely, some of them recycled products. So, there are a lot of alternatives available today to lower the cost of construction. I will not be able to probably give him specific examples, but if he does search in some of the universities and the research institutions, he will probably find these alternatives that are available.
CREDAI is a good source, and as you very correctly said, prefab. When you said prefab, I just recollected, we have one colleague of mine who has actually used fly ash, and he has recycled fly ash, and now he has come out with a product which is 1/3 the cost of the original brick and 1/3 the size, but gives you the same efficiency. So, he should visit CREDAI, talk to architects. There is a lot of innovation going on in this sector.
Yeah, I just like to add, in IIT Bombay, there's a team of professors who have developed sand from fly ash, and fly ash, as you know, is a waste product and costs the power generators to dispose of the fly ash, and this can be converted into sand, which is now quite a few places banned. Sand mining is banned in quite a few places, and that can reduce the cost of construction.
Sure. All right. I hope that answers your query, Vineet. Let's take in the next query. This is a call coming in from Balchandar Venkatesh. Go ahead, Balchandar.
Our company, Manisha Chemicals, an engineering firm in small scale sector, is manufacturing pollution control equipment and special purpose machines. We have acquired recently intellectual property rights for 2 energy saving equipments for use in foundry. Funds are required for processing, maintaining and commercializing the patents. My query is how MSMEs can acquire help by way of subsidy or other way for this intelligent process of intellectual property.
All right, Balchandar, thanks for that. So, specifically with regards to going ahead also with the IP, and we were talking about this previously, would you have anything to recommend?
The norms have been very liberalized now. So, the good news for him is earlier you needed to be actually registered with the Department of Science and Research with the Government of India for getting any subsidy regarding patents. That's been waived, so that's about the recent amendment. So, you don't need to get registered. So, they are actually making it easier. That's the first good news. The second good news for him is he is eligible. He is eligible to go across to the MSME sector to look at the department and apply for what we typically call here is a product patent. And number 3, what is very encouraging for me is when I look at his industry, he said pollution control equipment. That's the sector which is actually growing. So, a lot of customers are actually looking at this sector because they are getting a lot of depreciation benefits on that. He should as early as possible go down, go to the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises, and he can actually put his case forward. So, it's going to be much easier for him now.
Just to add to what he said, that if he has a R&D unit and he's making he's spending money on research and development, that gets an accelerated depreciation as far as income tax is concerned, so you can take benefit of that. Also, if he acquired these intellectual properties for cash, then he can actually depreciate that as well over a period of time, so that will give him additional tax benefits. Yes. And that can also be funded, in the sense, since it is now an asset, after it comes on his books, he could get that funded as well from a bank.
Okay, so that is an answer to Balchandar's query. I hope that has answered what you were looking for. Let's take in the next query. This is an email coming in from Prashant Thakkar. He's written into us to ask how he can expand and hire good talent, especially at a time when they are competing with MNCs, and MNCs, of course, he's saying, have huge pockets, and how does an MSME compete with them?
Giving them a share of employee stock options and getting them to become owners of the company, that can also, the sense of ownership sort of increase, and they need not be looking for the next jump of 1,000 rupees. I think a lot of startups have been able to do that, and a lot of interesting sort of employment engagement programs have come out of these startups, because that's how they've been able to compete with the MNCs. And maybe he should look at what other companies are doing in this space and follow that.
Apart from ESOPs, one important thing, and this is my experience, to carry forward this thought, I have had cases where very senior people in multinationals actually want to join smaller SMEs, or what I call as family managed businesses. To quote one of them, I asked him, he was giving up a very good plush international assignment. He had ESOPs, some of which had vested, but he was okay to give it up and join this family managed business. And I asked him, what is this? It is a huge monetary sacrifice. And the answer that he gave, I think, should be noted by Mr. Prashant, is that the gentleman just told me one thing. He said, whatever I do in this bigger organization will just contribute a bit to their progress. But now I think I've reached a stage in life where I want to make a name for myself. And I think this platform is a case where I think I can make the company grow, achieve international standards, and then when people start looking at the company, they'll know that it is me who is behind the show. So can he appeal to the value system of the person? Can he go across, talk about his growth plans? And very happy to note many family managed businesses, the typical term that we use for them is Baniya companies. A lot of family managed businesses are also looking at professionals, and professionals are also increasingly joining family managed businesses, and that's a very good part of India.
Okay, so that's a question as far as Prashant is concerned about hiring and competing with MNCs when it comes to hiring. Let's take a quick break on that note, but don't go anywhere. Lots more on the other side. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and we have a panel of experts answering your emails, answering your phones, your phone queries, as well as your Facebook query. In fact, the next one is a social media query coming in from Rupesh Choksi. He's written to us on Facebook saying, what would the rupee value against the dollar be after 3 months to today's value, and is it possible to predict this properly? And so I assume that the genesis of the question, and I assume he has something to do with the finance aspect of the companies. How do you hedge? I know it's a no-brainer that you can't really predict the value of the rupee, but what would you suggest to an MSME that's possibly engaged maybe in the export side of the business about how they can hedge and really sort of plan their finances?
There are mechanisms of hedging your receivables, getting a constant dollar price for it, which he could find out from his bankers or his chartered accountant how he could do that.
Sure. He should focus on his business model, right? The question does not reveal whether it's an importer or an exporter, but whatever be it, he should focus on his business model. He should go for forward cover. So that's something I've been telling all my clients, right? Specifically, don't speculate on forex because, right, as you very correctly said, sir, it's very volatile. Right? The fact is, SMEs should hedge. They should not speculate on the forex. Nobody can predict the markets. That's rule number one. Yes, bigger corporates maybe can leave their position open to a certain extent, but if you see the derivative losses, on a very serious note, if you see the derivative losses which happened in 2008 and 9, I've seen clients, colleague, that with 100 crore turnover, suffering a derivative loss of around 60 crores. Turnover of 100 crores, I'm not saying profit. Now, how do you match up to this?
Correct.
The answer is simple: forward cover, lock into the price, concentrate on your business model. And on a lighter note, and this is for experts like me, I think all the viewers should please remember, the so-called experts are people who can explain the event after the event has happened, not necessarily predict the event.
Fair enough.
No, the other thing is to notice that maybe in the past, the rupee was depreciating, every year. So people would sort of assume that the rupee will depreciate over the next 5 years, 10 years, and that's how they would. sort of take open positions in I think that time is gone. So now it's volatile, it's not moving in any particular direction.
Let's move on to the next query coming in from Manish Arya. He's written into us saying, how do you run a successful MSME business in an environment where taxes are being constantly raised? And as an add-on, a query that we get is, should there be a separate framework in terms of taxes for MSMEs? Because, you know, the payment cycles, like we were talking about, is so difficult for them to be able to get, you know, the money from their larger clients. Raising money from banks is also proving to be difficult. So somewhere do you think there should be a separate framework when it comes to taxes for MSMEs?
You know, taxes have to be factored into any sort of business model that you are you know, doing, and the only way you can is to control that a business has is on its costs. So if you control your costs and are able to, because you may not be always be able to pass on the tax increase to your customers because you're in a competitive marketplace. So you would essentially focus on cost reduction over a period of time would be my suggestion to manage increasing taxes.
There's good news on this front. If GST gets passed, right, so the indirect tax administration will get far more simpler, even for SMEs. Okay, that's the big if it gets passed in the monsoon. Current signs are yes, it will. Regarding direct taxes, I think the colleague possibly has not read the intent of the government. The government has laid a framework where they have said that they'll reduce direct taxes over the next 3 years and phase it downwards. So he should keep a note on that. Regarding framework for SMEs, yes, there is, right, like service tax is not levied on units which have turnover less than 10 lakhs, right, so it goes only when you are above 10 lakhs. But my interaction with SMEs has been different. They take care, they benefit and they use all these exemptions when they are small. When they grow, of course, you have to come out of the umbrella, you have to pay the taxes. They then use it as a complaint against competitors. So then once they are small, they seek all the exemptions. When they grow bigger, right, then they look back and say, hey, the competition is small, so he is exempt from service taxes. You can't do that. And when you start growing, you have to use what is known as economies of scale. Right? Look at your cost, right? Look at your scale business, look at your scope business. And taxes per se, I think, if you ask me, India is not that highly taxed. So if somebody who goes through the entire framework of both indirect and direct taxes, we are in the medium segment of taxes as of now. The good news is it is not going to keep increasing. It's the rate is going to actually come down, but compliance is going to be a far more stricter issue now.
Fair enough. So, Manish, that's an answer to your query on taxes. Let's take in the next query coming in from D. Pandarkar. He's calling in with his query. Go ahead.
You see, I am into manufacturing of chemicals. We are supplying our chemicals to leading consumers. We have to give them a credit of 90 days, and on against that we get a credit of 30 days. So, how to manage this imbalance of funds? Because paying our creditors within 30 days and taking our payments after 90 days, that is not matching our finance problems. So how this can be sorted out? Thank you.
Okay, so this was essentially something we were talking about earlier, saying that if you force them to pay up on time, they could go to competitors, someone who would possibly be able to take on this cost much better than you possibly could. So what advice would you have?
The answer is very simple. He has a working capital gap. It's a simple working capital gap. One, of course, I am assuming that he can't negotiate on both sides. So given that constraint, he should approach the bank for what we call as bill discounting facilities. Right. In case he wants collection also to be taken care by the banks, he could approach them for what is called as factoring services. Factoring is costlier than discounting, right? In his case, right, the gentleman's case, my request is he should just go to the bank, show them the working capital gap, talk about what we call as working capital financing, and that should take care of his gap. In case after factoring in the interest costs, if he is not able to make sufficient margins, my request is he should relook his business model. Very clearly, he should look at his business model. It is obvious that his customers are treating him like a bank, right, by paying him after 90 days. So that is one care he should take, right. So answer remains in 3-pronged: discounting, factoring. Third, factor in the bill up the interest cost and see if you're making sufficient margins.
Absolutely.
Sure. All right, let's take in our last query, and this is an email coming in from SK Mehta. He's written in to ask us, saying that he's working in the real estate business as a mediator between the buyer and the seller. He wants to know how they control transactions and increase those which are a higher brokerage value to ensure that they get a committed brokerage. So essentially a simple business question to say, how do I get more of those kind of business and those kind of clients which give me a better brokerage?
In a broader sense, that to not get disintermediated is to offer services which engages both the buyer and the seller over a longer period of time. You know, there are some business models which are emerging in the brokerage business where the broker becomes the property manager for the landlord and manages multiple properties for a particular landlord and gives them on rent to some of the single people, creates a guest house out of that. So there are multiple ways in which a real estate business, brokerage business can be expanded to ensure that you don't get disintermediated.
Just two observations. One, the era of easy business is gone today. So, right, the gentleman will have a problem because there are various portals which have come in and they don't charge brokerages, right. So, what could you do in such a case, right? Esteemed colleague mentioned about the US model, right. To add to that, what he could also possibly do is look at beyond only providing brokerage services, right. There are so many cases where he could do some more value added services, like, typically if you go onto a website, they will make you all meet and that's about it, the entire thing is over. Since this is more in the physical space, he could get in, if it's in Mumbai, he could possibly help them in police verification, take it to the next level, go to the society, get it registered, and possibly go back to both the clients and say that, yes, I am charging you brokerage not only for introducing both of you all, I am also helping you save the time. So if he can do that, then the business would definitely be a value add. Otherwise, such business models are going to increasingly get under threat. As we keep telling all our students back in SPJ and the clients, the era of easy businesses is over today. With internet coming in, so if I had some knowledge earlier, I could trade on that knowledge. With internet coming in today, knowledge is very easy to get.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming down tonight and talking to us and answering all of those queries completely out of time then on this episode of Leaders of Tomorrow. You can write in to us to reach our panel of experts. The email ID is leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com. You can reach us on social media using the hashtag LOT or call us on the number which is on your screen. Thanks for watching.